joining me today. So once again, thank you so much for putting up with a little technical difficulties. I am really excited that you have joined me here today because today we are going to be talking about some essential things that you need to know in your singing journey. So whether you are a professional and you're performing on Broadway, or even if you are starting your singing journey at the very beginning, then this stuff is so important for you to know. So today we are going to be talking about postural alignment, breathing, and the beginnings of vocalization. But first, what I would really like to talk about while we're waiting for a few extra people to come along and join us today is I want to talk a little bit, I want to talk a little bit more about Resonant Voice Online and what we aim to do. So Resonant Voice Online is, it started out as an online performing arts studio specialising in vocal studies. However, we have since grown to be so much more than that, and we have now actually started some more stuff for the community and for other singers who don't necessarily have to be students at Resonant Voice Online. So as you are attending a webinar, some other stuff that we do is obviously we do online voice lessons. We are an exclusively online performing arts studio, and our goal is to provide every singer as much as we possibly can. We believe in accessible vocal tuition for all. So even if you can't afford to have these online voice lessons with us, we still want to provide you with as much as we can. And we do this through our weekly online ensemble classes where we learn music theatre skills, and they are pay what you can. And we focus on building skill rather than building repertoire as you do in traditional music theatre classes. So that's why these classes are perfect, because you can do them in the comfort of your own home and you get to learn these skills. So you don't even have to come every single week. It's all about being flexible and being accessible as well for us. We also have our website, resonantvoiceonline.com, where we want to use this platform to provide content, resources, and materials surrounding accessible vocal tuition, vocal health and hygiene, performance, audition skills, everything that you need to know to help you in your singing journey. And then, as you can see, we also have our weekly webinars, workshops, and opportunities just like this one. This is our very first webinar, so once again, thank you for joining me. But we also are going to do workshops. So next week we have a Disney workshop, both with under 18s and adults, where you come in, you bring a 1 minute of a Disney song, and then you get feedback from professional performers and voice teachers. So not only will you get feedback from me, but we also have some fantastic special guests coming along. So not only do you get to build in these workshops, you get to build your performance skills, but you also get to get invaluable feedback. So that one next week is free. So I definitely encourage you to register for that. You can find all the information at resonantvoiceonline.com. And I think that is all I have to talk about with Resonant Voice Online. So yeah. So why don't we get started with our workshop today? Like I said, we are going to be talking about the very beginnings of singing, and we're going to be focusing on what you need to know essentially to be a singer. Not even to be a successful singer, but to just be a vocalist. And this doesn't even apply to just vocalists. This also applies for teachers and people who present, politicians, everything that involves talking, which is a lot of careers. So this is incredibly important to know. So I hope you have a pen and a piece of paper to write down some notes. And if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the live chat, where I will hopefully be able to see them and answer them. And if you have any questions that you would like a little bit more information on, we will have a section at the end of the webinar where you can provide those questions and I can hopefully answer them for you. So, like I said, if you don't know me, my name is Freya. I am the founder of Resonant Voice Online, and let's get started. So first, we are going to start with postural alignment. So most people call it posture. The fancy way of saying is postural alignment. And what basically everyone tells you to sit up straight, no matter what you're doing, whether you're singing, whether you're just sitting down in your chair. I know that in primary school, I was told a lot to not swing on my chair and not to slouch while I was sitting down. I had to be nice and straight. And it is important for multiple reasons. So it optimizes and enhances your breathing and vocalization, which is why we're here, I guess. And it also releases any unnecessary engagement of muscles. So if you are a singer, you might have heard a lot that you might have had tension. I don't like to use the word tension because it doesn't really explain a lot. I like to say engagement, unnecessary engagement. And you often get told that you might have engagement in your neck or in your jaw, in your arms, your shoulders, and postural alignment can really help with this sort of stuff. And it also prevents muscle fatigue. So if you are in the right position for singing, let's say, it's going to prevent any of that muscle engagement from happening, and therefore you're going to be able to perform a lot better without any fatigue or feeling too tired. And it also prevents physical injury as well, which I think is one of the most important reasons. So what I would love to do with you is I'm going to let you know on a little trick that I have. They are called my 10 points to perfect posture. So Freya's 10 points to perfect posture is what I have made to help you to remember and have kind of sort of a checklist to help you with the basic perfect posture for singing. So why don't we get started with the very bottom? That's why I've got 10 to 1. If you look at it from the top to the bottom, I like to start from the very bottom. So why don't we start with our feet? So our feet need to be shoulder width apart with our toes facing forward. This allows for you to be able to distribute your weight evenly so that A, you don't fall over, and B, so that you have enough weight distribution happening to allow you to be as agile as possible, especially if you're in music theatre or if you're doing any other movement while you are performing, which is a lot of styles, I guess. And also, I should have mentioned before, feel free to join in with me while I am saying this. You are more than welcome to stand up and try out these 10 points to perfect posture. So let's move on to our knees. So our knees need to be loose and slightly bent. So we definitely don't want your knees to be locked in because, like I said with feet, we need to be able to distribute our weight and also to be as agile as possible. So I like to say, especially in music theatre, I do specialise in music theatre. And with music theatre, we need to be able to just go when we need to go because we're dancing, we're acting as well as we are singing. So we need to make sure that we are physically ready to be able to do whatever movement is necessary. So next we have our pelvis. So our pelvis needs to be tucked under. And what I mean by this is you're just going to move your bum slightly forward, and this will prevent your bum, let's say, from sticking outwards and looking like a duck. I like to say to my little kids, you don't want to look like a duck, but that's a really easy way to remember and think of it. So we have our feet, our knees, our pelvis. If you're joining in with me with movement, I would love you to just think about where the bottom half of your body is sitting and how we can make sure that we are distributing our weight properly. The bottom half of our body is really for supporting our weight. So now let's move on a tiny little bit. We're going to move on to our stomach area. So I like to say stomach area because most people refer to that area in the middle as your tummy or your stomach, but even though we are referring to it as our stomach, the stomach doesn't really have much to do with singing. So this area is just what is involved with our lungs and our diaphragm, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But when we are looking at our stomach region, we want to be able to have it engaged so that it can move in and out while we are breathing. So we'll talk about this a little bit later, but we want to be using our diaphragm to help us breathe. So we want to be diaphragmatic breathing when we are singing. So that's why our stomach needs to move in and out, as opposed to shallow breathing when our shoulders would typically move instead of our stomach. Next, we're moving to our chest. So our chest needs to be lifted, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later because our next section is breathing, but it needs to be lifted and open. I like to say lifted and open because it gives you a good visualization of not slouching forward or anything like that. And with our chest, we have our shoulders, and just like our chest being open, it kind of allows our shoulders to be back a little bit more, rolled back, I guess, and sloping down. Oh, this one. Fabulous. So that they're sloping down. We don't want them to be lifted too much. And you see this a lot with belting. You see this whole top half of ourselves really engaging all that entire area, which is not what we want. We want sloped down and rolled back. And then we have our arms. You'll hear in music theatre a lot of people going, what do I do with my arms? Well, if you are not given a direction or you're not doing anything with your arms, I like to say just have them by your side and you want them relatively relaxed. We don't want to have any tension in our arms because when we have tension, that's going to pass over to the rest of our upper region. So no engagement at all. So we have our stomach, our chest, our shoulders, and our arms. Next, we have our neck. And for the rest of them, you're going to pretty much hear me say they have to be relaxed because this is an area where there could be a lot of engagement happening. And we definitely don't want engagement because when our voice is coming from here, what can happen is when we have that engagement, it could impact our vocal folds. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, but it could impact our voice to create not very nice or sustainable sounds. The whole point of this entire perfect posture system is to create the best chance for your voice to go to its full potential. So that's why our neck needs to be relaxed and it needs to be held tall. And you'll often hear people say you want your head stacked. And what I mean by that, let me just get my click pointer. So as you can see here, we have our spine and it's a tiny bit curved because that's just how our spine is, but it's relatively in a straight line. So what we want is we don't want to be pointing forward like this with our neck because what's going to happen is it's going to cause a lot of tension in our neck, which will then cause tension not only in our face area but also directly to our larynx, which is what we don't want, and that could possibly be how you get vocal pathologies like laryngitis is a big one, from fatigue to the vocal folds. So we want our neck to be tall and to be supporting our head but also not causing any unnecessary engagement. Next, we have our chin. So our chin, instead of sticking forward or being too back and causing a beautiful double chin, we want it to be parallel to the floor. And this is a really important point to remember because when we are singing big notes or high notes or notes that we consider a little bit difficult, you'll often see people go, and I'll stand there with the wizard, and being like, trying to reach for the gods to get that note with their chin, but that your chin has nothing to do with producing that sound. If anything, that's going to not help your voice at all because then when you're stretching up like that, you're causing a lot of engagement here. The neck, the chin, and the jaw is all about being relaxed and not causing any engagement of the muscles at all. Your voice is a little bit of a diva and it has to be in the perfect conditions for it to work to its best potential. So if you think of your voice like a diva, that will remind you that this area needs to be relaxed. Now we have our very last point, which is the jaw. And with the jaw, I always say that this is something that people definitely need to remember because the jaw is what I think is the most engaged for a lot of performers. You'll see a lot of people say, oh, I have jaw tension and my jaw is always tense. And that's because it is so easy to get into the habit of having an engaged jaw and having a jaw to, I guess, kind of help you make the sound. However, it doesn't do that at all. And so not only is it really easy to get into that habit of using the jaw, but it's also hard once you get into that habit to break out of it. If anything, I think it is one of the hardest things to do. So that is why from the get-go, it is so important to make sure you don't have any engagement of the jaw. You'll often see pop singers, especially if they're riffing or if they have really heavy vibrato, use their jaw. They do a jaw wobble. I don't know how to specifically do it, but they make it work. Whitney Houston is definitely someone that used it a lot. And if you watch, she has the most gorgeous voice, but she'll add this jaw vibrato, and it definitely didn't help. So the jaw is definitely something that I need you guys to make sure that you are keeping really relaxed. Fabulous. So we had the feet, the knees, the pelvis, the stomach, the chest, the shoulders, the arms, neck, chin, jaw. They are my 10 points to perfect posture. And they are just some really easy steps for you to remember to have perfect posture. Fabulous. So I hope you joined in with me then with outlining that perfect posture. So what we're going to do now is I'd love for you to join me in some exercises. So an exercise that I love people to do to help them kind of, especially if you don't have a mirror, to help you get in tune with your body to have that 10 points to perfect posture is a really simple exercise. I'm just going to explain it. I won't do it because my wall is all the way back there and then I'll be miniature and tiny on your screens. But something that I love for my students to do is to stand up against a wall. So your front of your body is facing away from the wall and you have the back of your head, the back of your shoulders, your calves and your heel up against the wall. And this kind of replicates the posture that we want. So you might need to do a little bit of adjustments depending on your body, but having that straight back and that nice clean alignment and that stacked feeling happening is a great exercise for you to kind of get in tune with your body so that you can kind of replicate the feeling of that perfect posture when you are off the wall. Another really awesome point to go with this exercise is you'll hear a lot of people say that it's kind of like you have a string at the top of your head and it is being pulled up and you're immediately straightening up. So what I invite you to do right now is find a clean wall like a clear wall. I mean, not a clean, I don't care if your wall has dirt or anything on it, but a clear wall. I want you to face away from it and I want you to line up your heels, your calves, the back of your shoulders and the back of your head against it. And I want you to adjust to kind of see how that feels. If you feel any discomfort anywhere or if you feel any engagement, you want everything to feel nice and loose. So go up against the wall for me. I'll give you a moment. When you are up against that wall, you want to remember that the bottom half of your body is there to support the upper half of your body. So remember, feet is supporting your weight. Your knees aren't locked in so that it can keep you agile. Your pelvis is tucked under. So while your bum might be up against the wall a little bit, you want to make sure that your pelvis is tucked under. You're breathing really low and you can feel your stomach moving in and out. Your chest is lifted and your shoulders are rolled back, so you'll be able to feel the back of your shoulder blades against that wall. Your arms, whatever, they're relaxed. Your neck is nice and tall, creating your head to touch the back of the wall. Your chin is relaxed, your jaw is relaxed, and you're feeling that strand going upwards. Now, just stay there for a moment and really close your eyes if you want, really take in that, how that feels. We not only want to create the perfect posture, but we also want to create a state of mindfulness so that when we sing, we are in the zone, we are agile, and we are ready to perform. Fabulous. Alrighty, feel free to come off the wall and come back into the position you were in before, taking notes and listening to me ramble on about vocal health and tuition, which is my favorite thing to do. Fabulous. Alrighty. So, another really important thing that I forgot to mention before is it's really important to experiment with your weight distribution. So we need our weights to be equally balanced and slightly forward. So as I was saying before about being ready to go when we need to go, it's really important that our weight is slightly forward so that we can go whenever. And to have that equal weight distribution, I actually did a workshop once in heels, and they made me take off my heels because the heels would have prevented me from constantly, it was making me constantly distribute my weight so that I could balance properly. So it's definitely very different if you are a heel wearer from performing in flats and performing in heels. So it's really important to do that exercise up against the wall, distributing your weight in both your flats and heels, because they're going to feel completely different. Going back to music theatre, especially for your music theatre, because you do have to wear chorus heels, character shoes a lot. So it's really important to have two different settings, I guess, of the perfect postural alignment. Everything in my 10 points of perfect posture still matters. The only difference is that the weight distribution might be slightly different. When you're flat-footed, you can distribute all of your weight along the bottom of your foot. However, when you're in your heels, you have to try and find that balance between the ball of your foot and the heel of your foot. Fabulous. So I think the biggest thing to remember is to keep your head stacked, as we talked about before. And when we are doing this and we're not slouching, it prevents our diaphragm from being compromised or being slouched over. So there are different postures that you can have, whether you're sitting or you're standing or you're slouched over. Obviously, when we are standing, we can practice at 10 points to perfect posture. However, when you're sitting, something that is really important to remember is to make sure that you're still distributing the weight in your legs and your feet. And the best way of doing that is actually sitting on the edge of your seat. So I'm going to roll back for a second here so that you can see how I'm sitting. I'm going to roll back now. That was a bit awkward. Oh well. So I was sitting on this edge of my seat. My feet were still shoulder width apart with my toes facing forward. My knees were obviously very bent as opposed to slightly bent. I could still tilt my pelvis forward a tiny bit, which allowed for my back to be really straight. But not as much as normal. But other than that, everything else was the exact same. So it's really important that we're not leaning back in our seat too much. Now, the exact same could happen when we are performing, especially when we are dancing and moving as well as singing. The same thing needs to be considered for when we are bent over, I guess. So the biggest thing, no matter what position you are in, the biggest thing is that you kind of have a straight line from your tailbone, I guess, to the top of your head. So we definitely don't want to be having our head too tilted over so that it is compromising our larynx. And we don't want to slouch too much so that our diaphragm and our lungs are compromising, especially when we're singing big songs, because we need as much lung space as possible. Alrighty, so that's all I have to say about postural alignment. If you have any questions, I haven't seen any questions in the chat so far, but if you do have any questions about postural alignment, we are moving on now. So if you have any, save that till the end of the webinar so that I can chat to you about it. Alrighty. So now we've talked about postural alignment, and you would have noticed that a lot of the things that I was saying was in reference to breathing. So why don't we talk about that a little bit? So obviously breathing is important because we need to breathe to live. But how we breathe in everyday life is incredibly different to how we breathe for singing. When we breathe in everyday life, what we normally do is we do something called clavicular breathing. And that is our really easy breath where we take only the top 1/3 of our lung, and we only use that small section. Our lungs can expand to be quite large, and we only use the top third of our lung when we use clavicular breathing. So we only take really shallow breaths when we're talking and when we're living our everyday lives. So this amount of breath that's in the top third of our lung is not enough for when we are singing. Obviously, because one, sometimes we have to sing really powerful, really loud, and really breathy especially when we are performing in opera and classical. We need all that air to get to the really high notes and to get to the really loud notes to not only sing over the orchestra, but also sing without any amplification. So that's why, number one, it's really important to make sure that we are breathing diaphragmatically. But also, number two, we might also be sustaining a long note. I'm not sure exactly what the longest phrase is, but there are some really long phrases out there where you have to sustain a note for ages. I once watched a video of a singer sustaining one single note for over a minute, which I think it was like over 3 minutes. I'll have to find it and share it with you all because it was quite extraordinary, but she would not have been able to do that without being able to breathe quite deep. So I want to talk about how we actually breathe. So how we breathe is actually by altering the size of our chest cavity. So when we expand and minimize our chest cavity, the air flows in and out of our nose or our mouth. And this movement is done through the movement of our ribs from our intercostal muscles and also from our diaphragm. So, for example, when our chest cavity is expanding, we need our ribs to lift and open up, and we need our diaphragm to contract. So what that pretty much means is that we are opening up when we breathe in, and we are creating that bigger space for our lungs to expand. And then when we exhale, that all comes down to its natural position. So what exactly are those words I just said? You've probably heard of the diaphragm, but our intercostal muscles? Why don't we talk about that a little bit? So I'm about to put up a photo of our intercostal muscles. So our intercostal muscles are muscles that are in our rib cage. So they are essentially in between each rib, as you can see along here. And through this when I found this photo, I was like, oh, this is perfect because it kind of shows exactly what our intercostal muscles are and where they are placed. So our intercostal muscles actually consist of 2 layers. So first we have our external intercostal muscle. And what that does is these muscles allow for our rib cage to lift and to open. Whereas, as you can probably guess, our inner intercostal muscles are used to move our rib cages back in and to its natural position, which I think is really, really cool. So our externals are responsible for when we breathe in, and our internals are responsible for when we breathe out. And these muscles causes our rib cage to open and close, open and close. Now get a good look at that intercostal muscles, because now we're going to talk about a little bit about the diaphragm, which you've all heard of before. But let's talk about that right now. So I have two pictures here, and you might be quite surprised to see that what we have here is actually the diaphragm. The diaphragm is quite a large muscle, and it's definitely not an external lung or another lung from our actual lungs. When a lot of people use the phrase, and it's one of my pet peeves, a lot of people use the phrase sing or breathe from your diaphragm. But you can't actually do that because the diaphragm is a muscle rather than another lung. But the role of the diaphragm is to help your lungs move and expand, essentially. So when we breathe in, the diaphragm descends, and then when we breathe out, the diaphragm goes back to its original position, just like the intercostal muscles, how they move back to their original position. So as you can see, the diaphragm is quite large. It's a dome shape. And it sits, as you can see over here. I had to include both of these because I loved both of these pictures. This one shows the diaphragm by itself, and this one shows the diaphragm in comparison to the other organs in our body. So as you can see here, at the top of the diaphragm, we have our lungs and our heart right there. And then below the diaphragm, sitting right underneath, we have the liver, stomach, intestines, everything like that. So our diaphragm sits on top of the liver, and it's actually, the membrane of the diaphragm is connected to our lungs. So when we breathe in and the diaphragm descends, what happens is it kind of acts like an anchor. It pulls the lungs down, and it allows the lungs to expand, kind of like a balloon. And then because of that expansion, that's why we need the intercostal muscles to make the ribs expand, so that it can create space for our lungs to get as big as they can, which I think is really cool. It's really fascinating to see how the body actually works and how much is actually involved in singing. It's a lot more than your larynx. Yeah, so the diaphragm, there's a lot of confusion about where the diaphragm actually sits for a lot of beginner singers, because some teachers will say that it's right at your gut, whereas it's actually located in its natural position, located at about the 5th rib, as you can see in this picture right here. And I love to share this fun fact. Did you know that when you breathe in diaphragmatically, so when you breathe for singing, did you know that our lungs can expand and fill up to 7 liters of air? I didn't know my little body could do that, but obviously it would depend on the gender of the person and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, 7 liters of air, that's a lot of air. So talking a little bit more about the diaphragm and about, I know, right? Sorry, that comment. That's amazing. It is. So talking a little bit more about the diaphragm. So when we fill up our lungs with those potentially 7 liters, our diaphragm actually descends 1 to 2 inches, which is quite a lot compared to when we are breathing clavicularly or when we are breathing in everyday life. When we are shallowly breathing, the diaphragm actually only descends half a centimeter or something like that, half a centimeter to 1 centimeter, which is, there is a massive comparison, and that is why diaphragmatic breathing is so essential when it comes to singing. So I think that's pretty cool anyway. So just to recap, when we take a breath in, our intercostal muscles, sorry, I had a bit of a blank mind there. Our intercostal muscles causes our ribs to lift and expand, and the diaphragm descends 1 to 2 inches. When we breathe out, everything returns back to its original place. And that's why we need the postural alignment that we talked about before, because if we don't have that postural alignment, those muscles could be compromised, especially when it comes to our diaphragm. If we are slouched over, our diaphragm can't actually move because it's the intestines, the liver, the stomach is a little bit crunched in. That's not the technical word, but it can't move the way that we need it to move. So that is why that is so important. And when this happens, obviously our tummy comes in and out. So when we breathe in, the tummy comes out. When we breathe out, the tummy comes back in. But we also need to make sure that when we are doing this properly, our shoulders aren't lifting and we aren't engaging anything up here. That is why we need everything to be relaxed up here when we are in our perfect postural alignment. So, we use this method of we use this method of breathing and singing because this makes sure that we perform to the best of our abilities and to make sure nothing's compromised. And this also helps us practice proper vocal hygiene, which is another webinar that I would love to do with you all. So if you're interested, make sure you keep refreshing that upcoming events tab so that we can talk a little bit about proper vocal hygiene, because I think that is really important. So we've talked a lot about postural alignment. We've definitely talked a lot about breathing, but let's actually apply that a little bit now. So what I would love to do with you now, I'd love to spend 10 minutes doing some breathing exercises. And these exercises are really important to not only practice and memorize the feeling of breathing diaphragmatically, but it is also really important to help us be mindful. And I love utilizing these exercises not only for my vocal hygiene, but also for my mental health and breathing deeply to stay relaxed when I'm feeling stressed out or anything. So it's really important to take note of these exercises because it's not only important for your singing, but it's also important for your mental health and wellness. So I invite you to do these exercises with me. Make sure you have a lot of room around you because we will be moving around a little bit. So I first want to start off with a mindfulness breathing exercise. So what I invite you to do, if it is comfortable, I invite you to lay on your side, on the floor. It doesn't really matter what side, but just make sure you're laying on your side as opposed to laying on your back or laying on the front. The reason why we do this on your side is to help your diaphragm work a little bit harder. When we are on our back, it's quite easy for the diaphragm to move because it kind of works with gravity. However, when we're on our side and the diaphragm is on its side essentially, it has to work a little bit harder, therefore you feel it a lot better. So what I would love to do right now is I would love you to follow my counts, and I just want you to breathe in and breathe out. Whether it's through your nose or your mouth, lay on your side, breathe in and out on my counts. Close your eyes if you want. This is quite a mindful exercise, and this is just to help you get in touch with your body. Alrighty, so if you are laying on your side, just follow my counts. Close your eyes and listen very closely. Let's breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Keep that pace going. If you do need to change how you're breathing or the counts that you are doing it on, then that is absolutely okay. You want to do what is comfortable for you. As you're breathing in and out, I invite you to channel in on your stomach region. Can you feel the expansion of your ribs? Can you feel the descending and the ascending of the diaphragm as you breathe in and out? Really channel in to those muscles. Fabulous. Let's do one more round. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Fabulous. Well done. Now, what I invite you to do is slowly get up. You have been deep breathing, so it's important that you do this slowly because you can get a little bit lightheaded. So slowly get up on your side, sit there, regain your thoughts, and then stand up for me. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. I really hope that exercise helped you not only be mindful, but get you connected with those specific muscles. Alrighty, now that we have done that exercise, what I invite you to do now is do something completely the opposite. We were mindful and now we're going to essentially turn into animals. When I say turn into animals, I like to call this exercise the monkey exercise. So what I invite you to do, and I will do this with you, but what we're going to do is we're going to stand in our perfect posture and then we are going to roll down, making sure that we have our back slightly curved, but we're not compromising our diaphragm. But this exercise is important for feeling your intercostal muscles because they can be the toughest to feel naturally. So we're going to roll down. We're going to breathe in and out, in and out, in and out. That's to feel the intercostal muscles expanding your rib cage. I also invite you, if you want, to put your hand on your back so that you can feel with your hands what our intercostal muscles are doing. So now that I've explained that, let us do it together. Hopefully you'll still be able to hear me. I will be standing back a little bit, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Alrighty. Alright. So, you can't see my face, but that's okay. What we're going to do is roll down, 2, 3, 4, and we're just going to sway, hang here, and then I want you to breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Place your hand on your back if you want, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Keep going for me. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Fabulous. Alrighty, slowly roll up. And I just want you to take a few seconds here, just breathing in and out and seeing if you can feel, try and feel if you can feel that expansion happening as you're standing up. We want to make sure that we're still breathing in nice and deep. So breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Fabulous. Now come back. I invite you to come back to where you were positioned before. So as you have been watching this webinar, whether you've been sitting, whether you've been standing, I hope you've been sitting because we've been chatting for almost 45 minutes now. So I hope you've been sitting. So now I invite you to have your 10 points to perfect posture as you are sitting down if you are. Whether you're sitting on a seat, whether you're sitting on the floor, I invite you to make sure that your upper body is straight and nice and relaxed. If you're sitting in a seat, make sure your feet are shoulder width apart. You are on the edge of your seat and you are distributing your weight evenly. If you are sitting down on the ground, I invite you to sit cross-legged. Make sure you are sitting up nice and straight. Fabulous. We're going to do an exercise now called the Farinelli exercise. The Farinelli was a singer and he was known for his fabulous sustaining of notes. He could hold notes on forever, not literally, but he created this exercise to be able to help singers every day with growing their, and what am I trying to say here? what I'm trying to say is that he created this exercise to help singers be able to really work on their breathing and to get you to feel comfortable with how to diaphragmatically breathe, because it can take a while to naturally get the instinct to breathe diaphragmatically, because every single day we breathe clavicularly. So it can take a little bit of time to get you into the perfect position to breathe diaphragmatically. So what I invite you to do now is follow me as we breathe in and breathe out. So we're going to take a breath in for 4. This is where we're going to start. We're going to take a breath in for 4. We are going to suspend our breath. So pretend that I have told you some juicy gossip, like, oh my gosh, lol, the Tony Awards are actually back on, ha 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 ha. I wish they were. But pretend that I've just told you some juicy gossip and you are going to suspend and keep an open throat. You don't want to clamp up and have, a closed throat, because we don't want that engagement, that unnecessary muscle engagement. So breathing in for 4, suspend for 4, breathe out for 4. I want you to do this through your mouth. And then we'll eventually increase. So 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Suspend, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3. Again, breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Suspend, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3. One more time. And in, 2, 3, 4. Suspend, 2, 3, 4. And out, 2, 3, 4. Fabulous. Alrighty, why don't we go up to 6 this time? At any point during this exercise, if you need to tap out, or if you need to just take a bit of a break, a breather, I guess, then, because you can get a little bit lightheaded from doing all this intensive deep breathing if you're not used to it, then it's absolutely okay. It's not like I'm watching or anything. All right, let's go up to 7 this time. Alrighty, breathing in for 7, suspending for 7, out for 7. Ready? 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Suspend, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, and in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Suspend, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, and in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Suspend, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Woohoo! Well done. That was awesome. All right, 10. Let's go up to 10. We can do this. Alrighty. 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Suspend. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Suspend. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One more time. And in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Suspend. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woohoo! Well done. I invite you to do that exercise every single day, and you can go further than 10. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, you can go to 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever you want. Just make sure that the key is that as we're breathing in and out, we want the air to be equal. We don't want to go 1, 2, and then get to 2 and then not have any more air. So we're just holding our breath for the other 8 counts. We want to make sure that we are breathing out equally over all of the counts, and then as well as we're breathing in. So we want to make sure that that's happening. This is a really great exercise to do also before you go to sleep, to help you sleep, because you're concentrating on your breathing. but it's also really good to do it every day to not only get you used to diaphragmatic breathing, but also helping increase your breathing time as well. I've seen some amazing cases where students will start at 4 and can't really do much else, and then they eventually get to 30, which is amazing. We're going to do one more exercise now. I hope you're taking on these breathing exercises, and I hope that you can apply them to your everyday life to help you with your diaphragmatic breathing. But we have one more exercise, and this is going to help us with understanding our anatomy, understanding our diaphragm, our intercostal muscles, and using those muscles to actually help us with singing. So not only help us with being able to sustain long notes, but also helping us have a nice, clear, smooth tone. So what I want you to do, I'll explain first. We're going to breathe in through our nose and then breathe out on S. We're going to actually vocalize on this one. So, I guess not vocalize because S isn't a voice consonant. Anyways, we're not actually vocalizing, but we are playing with tone a little bit. And how we are doing this is as you are going S, we want to use our diaphragm and our intercostal muscles, but mainly our diaphragm. We want to use our diaphragm to help move our lungs and exhale as smoothly as possible. So I'll explain a little bit how we vocalize a little bit later, but basically it's all about the breath. So we want to make sure that we are distributing and putting out as equal breath as possible. When we put out too much breath or too little breath at any given moment, what ends up happening is I don't know if you could hear that, but it wasn't even. And we definitely, when you start adding vocals to it, start adding actual sounds, what ends up happening is our tone becomes unequal, it becomes wavery, and that is considered a little bit of an issue. So let's do this exercise together. We're going to breathe in through our nose, breathe out on a S, and we're going to use our diaphragm to create smoothness in our S. So let's do it together. So breathing in, breathing out. You can go as long as you want or as little as you want. This exercise isn't about how long you do the exhale on the S. It's all about the stableness and the sustainability of that S. So let's try that again. Ready? Breathe in through your nose and fabulous. Let's try that one more time. Breathing in through our nose diaphragmatically, no lifting chest. Ready? Breathe out. Fabulous. I hope that you guys could feel your diaphragm moving and you used it to your ability. Of course, if you didn't, that is absolutely okay, but I promise you that if you keep practicing, you will feel it and you will be able to understand a little bit more how to use our diaphragm and our intercostal muscles to our advantage. If you do have any more questions or you would like some extra guidance about or if there's something that you don't quite get, make sure to stick around at the end to ask some questions, or if you want, you are more than welcome to check out our website, resonantvoiceonline.com, and inquire there about having some guidance or mentorship. But what I would love to do now is we're actually going to move on. We're done with breathing. We're done with postural alignment. We're going to actually put them together and we are going to talk about the beginnings of vocalization. And I guess that's why you're all here, to kind of wonder how to... That was really hard work. Oh my gosh. That was just Tony in the comments with, that was really hard work. And it is. Breathing diaphragmatically is really hard work. But as I was saying before I got distracted, we're going to talk about vocalization, which is what you guys are all wanting. So I think whether you think you're a good singer or not, what I want you to already know, I hope, is that you are a singer. No matter what you think the quality of your voice is, no matter if you have singing lessons or not, or you actually want to be a singer, you are a singer already. If you can talk, if you can mimic, if you can make sounds, you are already a singer. So congratulations. I guess you don't need my help. I'm kidding. But singing is something that most people can do. If they can talk, they can sing. Let's not worry about pitch at the moment. It's all about vocalization and using your voice to express yourself. And that's not only through talking, that's through singing. And it's something that you have done since you were a child, whether you were actually trying to or not. From the crying or the yelling for your mum or just mimicking other sounds you could hear, whether that was animal noises or noises on the programs that you were watching, you have been singing. So we learn about the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles and our posture, but let's actually talk about why any of them matters. And we are going to do that through talking about one of my favorite things in the world, our larynx. Oh, isn't she a beauty? I love the larynx. Funny story, my husband actually got me a larynx necklace for my birthday last year. I should be wearing it. Oh, I'll have to show you guys next time in our next webinar. But that's how much I love the larynx. I just think it is so good. But what you might be interested to hear is that our larynx wasn't actually, I guess its main purpose isn't actually for singing. I'll talk about that in one tiny second, but first, our larynx, what other people might call our voice box, is what I think the most important part of vocalizing. So it's actually located at the top of our windpipe, and what you see here, I guess you should use my pointer, what you see here is the larynx. And the larynx job, among other things, but to me, what is really important is that it holds our vocal folds. Oh, and this is what we use for singing. And these are what we need for singing. These are the divas that I was referring to before. They are divas because one little thing goes wrong and it's like indoor plants. The pH in my soil is too low. I am dead. That's pretty much the vocal folds. Anyway, so as I was saying before, the larynx and in fact the vocal folds, its main purpose isn't actually for singing or vocalizing. So its main purpose is actually to stop us from choking. So thank you, vocal folds. I really appreciate that. But I'll talk a little bit about why. So as you can see here in this in this diagram, the vocal folds are open. So these are actually the vocal folds right here. And then we have some other stuff happening around us. But this is what we're concentrating on right now, is the vocal folds. And these vocal folds that you see here are open. So when they are open, it allows for air to actually come through. So whether you're breathing in or breathing out, your vocal folds are open. When they are closed, so they're like this. When they are closed, so when they are together, this generally happens when we are holding our breath for one, or when we are swallowing. And this action of closing stops food or, just anything that's not in our body from coming in from actually entering our windpipe and therefore choking. So that's the main purpose, is to stop us from choking. But the really cool thing that they can do is they can vocalize. And how they actually do this is we breathe in or out, they're open, we swallow, they close. When we want to vocalize, they come together and they vibrate. So when we vocalize, they come together obviously a lot faster than this. And through that vibration, as we exhale and breathe out, as the air is coming from our lungs, through our windpipe and to our vocal folds, when we want to sing or vocalize or talk, they vibrate together. And then what comes out is a sound, pitch, whatever. So that vocalization that's coming out is it's stopping, it's getting the air and essentially turning the air into sound, which I think is just so cool. This is why I love them so much, and I could go on all day about the vocal folds and tell you how much I love them together. So that's how sound is created from us. Air comes through, they vibrate together, and out comes sound. Woohoo! We can talk, we can sing. And I want to quickly show you, obviously when I was doing that before, that's not the speed. They actually can vibrate together 100 times a second. It depends on your pitch. The higher your pitch, the faster they vibrate together. But I want to actually show you some vocal folds in work. If you have just a warning, if you have a sensitive stomach, then you might want to turn away. It's not bloody or anything, but some people find the vocal folds disgusting. I don't, but it depends on what you think. So let me just show you. There won't be any sound. So we have the vocal folds here. This is through a stroboscope, which is a camera down the nose. And as you can see here, they are coming together. So they're breathing and then they're coming together. So even though it looks like it's going really slow, it's actually going really, really fast, and the camera isn't picking up how fast it's going. So that's why it's kind of showing that it's slow. With these, I just found this clip on YouTube. You just look up vocal folds, and this is generally the first thing that comes up. But in particular about the video stock, but in particular about these vocal folds, I don't know this exactly, but generally the vocal folds will come together fully when we are vocalizing. But let me replay that. I wonder if I can replay that. Yeah. So as you see, when they come together, there's actually a bit of a gap up here. So I'm not entirely sure why this particular person is getting a stroboscopy or if they have any conditions, but it kind of looks like that this could potentially be a mutational shink, which is when the muscles around the vocal folds are swollen, and it generally occurs in females aged around 13, 14, 15 during puberty. But the swollen muscles, I'm just rambling here, but the swollen muscles actually create a gap. And that's why when someone has this condition, but when they're going through this phase in their vocal journey, they sometimes female teenagers can sound a little bit breathy, especially when they go up into their higher range. That was me going off on a little bit of a tangent, but I just think that's really cool. I want to know what you guys think. Did you guys think that was really cool, or am I just crazy because I like watching vocal folds? Let me know in the comments, but we'll keep going. Anyway, so that is why it is so important to have control over our breath, because our breath is actually our sound when we want to make it. So that is why it is so important. When we were doing that exercise before, eventually when we translate to we don't want to be like because that can affect, as you can hear, that affects our pitch, that affects our volume, that affects how much breath is actually in the sound, and it also makes us a bit wavery as well. So that is why it is so important to be able to control our breath. So what I would actually like to do with you now is, now that I've explained the anatomy and how we actually make our sound, I would love to do a few exercises with you right now, some vocal exercises to kind of get you into the method of vocalizing. So like I said before, this workshop is for this webinar, I should say, is literally for everyone. So whether you're a beginner or you're a professional, it is so essential that you're constantly, reintroducing yourself to your vocal folds. And these are a few exercises that you can do to do that. So first, I want to start off with a simple hum. Let me turn on my keyboard. I hope you guys can still hear me if I've got it over here. But what we're going to do is we're just going to start with a really simple hum. We do this a lot in everyday life. We go, So that's what a simple hum is. If you, for some reason, have never done a hum before, all it is we can do it with a closed mouth or an open mouth. And it is quite, you'll be able to feel it at the tip of your nose. And what's happening is your tongue is connected to a little spongy bit at the back of your mouth, which is what we call a soft palate. So if you run your tongue along the roof of your mouth, if you go from the front, you'll be able to feel a hard bit, but then at the back, you'll be able to feel a spongy bit. So we want the back of our tongue to be connected to that spongy bit, which is called our soft palate. And you're just making really soft noises. Let's just try the humming together. Doesn't matter what pitch you're on. What I invite you to do now is, I should put my headphones on so that I can actually hear the piano and make sure I'm playing the right notes. All right. So, can you guys hear that? I'll keep going, but just let me know in the comments if you can hear the piano. Yes, Ruby, it moves up and down when you touch it. Yeah, so this is going off on a little tangent a little bit, but when it's often said by teachers that you need to lift your soft palate. You need to lift your soft palate, which can be really hard to feel. But with that lifting, it creates more space for the sound to resonate. We can talk a little bit about that in another webinar, but it is quite movable. That's why it is called the soft palate, and it is spongy, because you can actually move it, as opposed to the hard palate that is hard and you can't actually do anything with it. So let's start on an E. I just want to go on an E. If you are comfortable with this note, then you can hum on this note. If you are a lower singer, you are more than welcome to either sing a different note or just sing the E, which is an octave below. So we're just going to take a nice deep breath in, and then we're going to hum. And I want you to imagine that the sound that is coming out is connected to a Sharpie or a texter, and you want to pretend like you were drawing an incredibly straight line with your sound, with the air that's coming out, the sound. So let's take a breath in, and then we're going to hum out for as long as you want. Ready? Breath in. Fabulous. Let's try that together. Make sure that your lips are loose. We don't want them tight together. You can do this on an open mouth. As you can see, my tongue isn't far forward. It is back, as it is connected to the soft palate. Let's try that again. I'm going to try an open mouth now. Ready? Breath in. Fabulous. Well done. Now we're going to try that. We might try at C now. So, let's actually try it at D. What I invite you to do now is we're going to make the same sound, but we're going to do it over a variety of different pitches. So when we create these pitches, like I said, our vocal folds, as we go up, the vocal folds vibrate faster. As we go down in pitch, our vocal folds vibrate slower. So what I invite you to do is we're just going to go take a breath in. I added in a little bit of vibrato there. I'm sorry, I can't help it. But now I want you to do it in one straight line, no vibrato or anything. Let's try that together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Fabulous. For some, this might be incredibly easy and basic for you, but for others, if you are having challenges with this, that is absolutely okay, but we need to make sure that we're completely aware of our voice so that we can feel it resonating. So while we're doing all these exercises, I want you to be really clued in to your body. Where are you feeling all these sounds coming from? Not only can you feel it from your vocal folds because that's physically where the sound is happening, but sometimes we can even feel the sound in other places, like when we hum, we feel it in our nose. When we are singing lower, we might feel it in our chest. When we are singing higher, we might feel it in our head. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. But make sure as we're doing these exercises, you're connecting with your voice and your body. Ready? Let's try that. 1, 2, breath in. And again. Make sure you use your body to control the sound. One more time and fabulous. Now we're going to try the same thing, but we're going to try it in a even bigger interval. So this interval that we are doing right now is a major second. If you don't know what intervals is, that's absolutely okay. When someone says like a major second or a perfect fifth, what people are pretty much saying is the amount of notes or the space that's in between two notes. So we have a major second, and then we have a perfect fifth. I hope I play the right notes. There we go. I'm not looking at the keyboard, so I was like, I hope I'm playing the right notes. So now let's try that perfect fifth on that hum. As we are singing a tiny bit higher and we are jumping up the interval, essentially, what I want you to really think about is what are you going to do with your body, with your diaphragm, with your intercostal muscles or anything else in your body. What are you going to do to make that as smooth as possible? The first time we do this, it might be a little bit chunky, but that's absolutely okay. We'll do this a few times, but I want you to be adjusting every single time to create the smoothest tone possible. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. And again. Think about how you're adjusting. Keep going for me. Fabulous. One more time. Beautiful. Well done. That was really good. Now we are going to move to an R sound. So we are actually going to be releasing the sound even further. So I guess you could feel a little bit more comfortable humming because it is a bit quieter. But now we are going to let it all go. We are going to open our mouth. We are going to drop our tongue from our soft palate. We are going to make sure our jaw is slightly dropped so that it's not engaged. And we are going to sing an R vowel. R. Oh, pretend that you are a very posh person. You're going, oh. I actually don't know if posh people actually talk like that. But pretend that you have a little character on. So we want to create a incredibly balanced sound. So we're going to do it on the 1, 5, 1 again. And we're going to really imagine that we are drawing with that imaginary texture the smoothest, straightest line possible. Ready? Let's try it a few times on R. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. Again. Keep going for me. Fabulous. Let's create the smoothest line possible. One more time and fabulous. Now, even though we're playing specific notes, if you are not singing these particular notes or if you are having any trouble with pitch, that is okay. We will talk about pitch in another workshop or webinar. But our main focus at the moment is using our breath to create the smoothest tones possible. Let's add in some more notes. So we're on here. Just remember, if you are a lower singer, you can start here. There we go. Let's do a major, not a minor, Freya. We're going to go on R again because we are comfortable with that. We're going to go ah. I always try and add in vibrato. I'm a very vibrato heavy singer, so doing this straight tone is a good exercise for me. I hope it's a fantastic exercise for you as well. But let's try that. As we are moving up and down in pitch, make sure you're keeping relaxed and make sure we're utilizing those muscles that we talked about earlier to help you create the smoothest line possible. I keep reminding you about that, and you're probably saying to your screen, Freya, shut up about that. But it is really important and something that I find that a lot of people do need constant reminders about. Alrighty, let's give that a go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fabulous. Now, did you hear in my voice then, I didn't quite have enough support from my diaphragm. I wasn't utilizing my diaphragm as I was on this note coming back down. So what happened is my voice actually wavered a little bit. I don't know if you heard that, but when I post this on the YouTube channel, make sure to come back to, 1 hour and 16 minutes, and have a listen to that back if you didn't hear it just then, because it is really important to recognize when that sort of stuff is happening. So I'm going to try that again with you, and we're going to keep going. Let's keep adjusting along as well. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. And by yourself, and fabulous. Keep going. 2 more for me, and lucky last, and fabulous. Well done. Alrighty, so something that I think is really important to mention, that as you're vocalizing, whether you're starting your singing journey today with this webinar, or you are a professional, or somewhere in between, it is really important to remember that when we sing, we generally do not want to feel any discomfort or anything going, wrong with your voice. So when we sing, sometimes, especially as we're beginning to sing or when we're experimenting with our voice, sometimes we can sing notes that aren't entirely comfortable. And a lot of times singers will think, oh, that's okay, I'm just going to keep going. But unfortunately, this is not the case. This is something that we definitely should not tolerate. So it really depends on what genre you're singing. But as a general rule, nothing should feel uncomfortable. So if you're singing something and it is feeling uncomfortable, even as we're doing these exercises today, I invite you to stop, think, readjust, and see if there is another way you can make either the same sound with a different strategy, or we can make a different sound. An example that I like to use is, while we were singing it on R, this might not be a comfortable vowel for you. People favor different vowels. My particular favorite vowel is ooh. I really like to use the ooh vowel. So if you need to change the vowel, just think R, E, O, ooh. And you can experiment with any different vowels. You'll also notice that when you do experiment with vowels, you feel things differently. So an R doesn't feel the same as an ooh, even though you are singing the exact same notes. So that is something to really be mindful of, is that if something's uncomfortable, then you need to change it. Whether you do this by yourself or whether you do this with a vocal mentor, it's really important to make sure that you're not constantly singing something that is uncomfortable. And that is also why it's really important to make sure that we are being entirely connected with our body when we are singing. So even if and I always love when people refer to themselves as vocal athletes. It's kind of a new phenomenon with people going, I'm a vocal athlete. And I think it is 100% accurate, because singing isn't just, as you can tell today, singing isn't just about what's happening with your vocal folds. It's an entire body thing. I do believe that, if you break your arm, it does affect your voice. Even though your arm does not physically have anything to do with your voice, it does affect, everything affects your voice. Third time I'm saying this, your voice is a diva. So if anything goes wrong, you'll know about it. All right. So something else that I think is really important, that it's important to explore your whole range. So whether we are starting here, maybe you want to look at some notes up here, or some notes down here, or some notes here, wherever. You want to explore your whole range. It is really important to note that, kind of like how we were talking about the difference between the feelings on vowels, it's also different on where you place your voice. So there's this, you've probably heard it before, but chest voice, head voice is not really a term that I particularly like to use, because it can be a bit ambiguous, I guess. But a lot of people still do refer to their higher voice as head voice and their lower voice as chest voice. And the reason for this is because generally when we sing lower and in our speaking range, we can, if you put your hand on your chest and sing, if this is a low note for you, you can feel it. You can feel a buzzing in your chest. However, if you sing, what note was I just on that one? If you sing a note up here, I can feel it. I can feel it buzzing in my face. I can feel it right here and a little bit here as well. So even though your chest and your head, they're not creating the sound, you can feel that resonance happening. So that is why it feels different. And that is why some people refer to it as head voice and chest voice. So, what I would love to do with you now is let's just do a few vocal exercises and help you explore your voice a little bit. Once again, I'm going to play a note. If you are a lower singer, feel free to sing at the octave lower. But what we're going to start with now, we're just going to start at middle C. And I just want to go on and ah. Let's go ah. At the end there, that going in between two notes, that was me using vibrato. You are more than welcome to keep that straight line that we've been working on, or if you naturally have vibrato, you can add it at the end of your phrases. But let's just sing it on R. We're going to go up and then back down. If you are a lower singer, you can start down here. Ready? On R. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah. Ah, 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 one more. Ah. So just going from here to where we got to, we probably explored a whole heap of different ways to sing just from that. So being able to do specific exercises can help you with understanding your voice a little bit more, which is why it's important to mention this, especially when we're talking about the beginnings of vocalization. So another exercise that I would really love, we are finishing up soon, I promise, but just another exercise that I would like to do is we're going to do a siren. You know, when you hear the ambulance going past or anything like that, you will hear it going wee-oo, 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 and it's sliding in between these notes. That's what we're pretty much going to do with our voice, not to that extent, but what I invite you to do is to find a low note at the bottom of your voice. We're going to go to the top of our range, do a nice roller coaster at the top. We're not going to peak with our voice, and then we're going to come back down. For example, I'm going to do this on R. Oh, that was a bit unsmooth going back down. I wasn't quite using my diaphragm to help support my voice. See, even experts who are researchers and doing their life is voice, they still mess up sometimes. So I invite you to do that with me. It doesn't have to be exactly where I went with my notes, but I want you to try and not only create a smooth line, but also explore your voice a little bit more. So let's do that together. Ready? Starting low and oh. Fabulous. Let's do that one more time. Ready? Oh. Fantastic. Let's do one more exercise just to make sure that we have got the basics of vocalizing. So what I want you to do is we won't go too extreme because we haven't talked about pitch. So we're just going to do an exercise that we did before. Whoop. My finger slipped. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a nice deep diaphragmatic breath. We're going to make sure that our posture is perfect. And we're going to sing this 3 times. Make sure we're using our diaphragm to help our voice. Ready? Start down here if you're a low singer. Is your posture perfect? Tempo is perfect posture. Feet, knees, chest, butt. Why did I skip straight to chest? Feet, knees, butt, tummy, chest, shoulders, arms, neck, chin, jaw. All right. Take a deep diaphragmatic breath in. And fabulous. Check back in with your posture. Are you comfortable? Are you distributing your weight properly? Fabulous. Take a deep breath in. Is your tummy coming out? No shoulders. And fabulous. Check back in with your posture. Are you comfortable? Are your knees not locked in? We definitely don't want our knees locked in. Fabulous. Take a breath in. Are your ribs expanding? And one more. You're going to do this without me. Check in with your posture. Breathe in. And fabulous. Well done. Alrighty. So, I hope that everything that I said today, you took a little bit of information from. So what I would love to do now is that I would love to say that we have officially finished our webinar for today. So we talked a little bit about postural alignment and our 10 points to perfect posture. We talked a little bit about breathing, so the anatomy of breathing, how we actually breathe and how to use it for our voice. And we talked about the beginnings of vocalization, so the anatomy and how we actually create sound, and then how to combine those 3 things together to create the perfect singing environment.